What is the situation there now?
Good morning, Matt. Indeed, the IDF continues to be poised and prepared for any further aggression against Israel. What happened in the early hours of this morning is a unity of reasonable players against the diabolical plan of Iran when they fired over 300 rockets, explosive drones, missiles towards Israel, cruise missiles. This is a very, very serious act against Israel. But what actually happened with Israel, our aerial defenses, the abilities of the US military, the British military and Air Force, and the French Air Force, as well as other players in the region, a very, very clear message to Iran that this just won't go. Together, united, we saved Israeli lives tonight.
Will you respond?
It's a very good question. I think what we are looking towards the government today, and the government will convene later today, and they will make their decisions, and they will instruct the military accordingly. We will, of course, be preparing ourselves for any eventuality and the developments that are required. Of course, this is a very grave attack against the state of Israel by Iran, but it's not, although it's very different, it doesn't change the reality that we've experienced over the last 6 months, where all of Iran's proxies have been conducting a coordinated, I would say orchestrated attack effort against Israel, from Hezbollah in Lebanon via the Houthis in Yemen, and of course Hamas in Gaza. So we're facing now another development in the war effort, where Iran has clearly stepped up a notch against Israel and putting so many lives yesterday at risk, where the country basically was engulfed by alarms. Thankfully, almost without success. We have one 7-year-old baby girl who has been injured, critically injured, and she's fighting for her life this morning. And of course, the limited ability of Iran's ballistic missiles to hit Israel. They were able to hit one of our air bases that didn't really do much damage, and the air bases up and operational, and operations didn't cease during that event. I would say, though, they fired 170 explosive drones towards Israel. None of them reached Israel. They were all intercepted beforehand. They launched 30 cruise missiles towards Israel. None of those reached Israel, and they were all intercepted outside Israel's airspace. And out of the 120 ballistic missiles that they fired towards us, only a handful of them actually reached any sort of destination. So we are poised and prepared for any development. The reality is one that is extremely tense, as Alistair Bunkle pointed out. And I think that we have to look open-eyed to what can actually happen further. And that is why the IDF is prepared, and our aerial defenses continue to be on high alert.
Before we get onto that, what involvement was there from your allies, in particular the US and the UK? Because we understand the Royal Air Force was on an operation in the region at the time.
Matt, I don't want to talk on their behalf. I think it's we each have our own seat at the table. I think over the last 6 months there's been a lot of coordination, and we saw the head of the US CENTCOM here over the last few days. I would say ironing out the details in order to be prepared for Iran's attack, and it just worked perfectly. I think it's probably unprecedented in the nature of modern warfare, in this type of rocket standoff attacks that we experienced, how it worked so well. 99% interception rate is extremely high, but it's because we all worked together.
What coordination, Lieutenant Colonel, was there as well with your Arab partners and allies in the region?
So I won't go into specifics. Of course, there is great opportunities, strategic opportunities, in facing the diabolical intentions of Iran together, because Iran has only proven through the last 6 months and extensively in the last 24 hours of their ill intention, their will to destabilize the region. And that is why there is a very strong, I would say, strong message to Iran.
Was the attack on Iran's consulate in Syria provocative as well?
So I'm not going to comment on that. I can say that Iran has been hiding behind its proxies over the last 6 months. Even just this morning, we had more rockets fired by Hezbollah
Yes, but they weren't entirely unprovoked, were they, in this instance? It is a response to what happened on April the 1st.
I think that what we've seen throughout the course of the last 6 months, Iran has been the puppet master of everything bad that is happening. They equip, train, fund all of these hostile players, the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, with some $100 to $200 million a year, Hezbollah in Iran, which is almost $1 billion a year. So in Lebanon, sorry. So Iran is not a standoff player. They are
really, Lieutenant Colonel, you're at war with Iran. Has this opened up a new front in your war then?
I certainly hope not. I think we need to be prepared for that reality. Our goal is to secure the safety of the people of Israel, to make sure that people here can go on living their lives in a normal situation. 300 missiles, rockets, and drones were fired at Israel over the last night. Their only intention was to kill Israelis. They failed. That's a good thing. We need to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Well, I'm sure you'd agree it's the safety of all civilians across the region that is paramount, is it not?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what is happening in Gaza right now? Because we know recently you've withdrawn troops from the south. Is your purported ground assault on Rafah still going to happen?
The situation in Gaza this morning, I think, continues to be a state of war. We have forces on the ground, mostly in the northern areas. We are preparing ourselves for operations in Rafah that will take place under the instruction of the government, but at the same time with the intention to evacuate civilians from the combat area. Hamas has to go. That is a reality of this war. When they broke into and invaded Israel on the 7th of October, they basically sealed their own destiny. They can't be trusted with the powers of government because we've seen what they do with those powers. They build a terrorist army. They came into our bedrooms, our kitchens, and living rooms and butchered our babies, abducted men, women, and children and elderly. They have to go, and this has to be the outcome. We have to conduct our operations in accordance to international humanitarian law, in accordance to the laws of armed conflict. We maintain that is exactly what we're doing. And of course, we'll pursue Hamas so that they cannot threaten Israel ever again.
We are hearing from Jordan's foreign minister that regional escalation must be prevented. It could push the whole region into an abyss of war. But the first step towards de-escalation is ending the Israeli aggression on Gaza and starting to implement the two-state solution, as it's the only path to security and peace for all. That coming from Jordan's foreign minister there on X. Many would agree with that there has to be a path to security and peace for all. Do you think that means Israel then will not escalate this further?
Matt, this war can be over today if Hamas unconditionally surrenders and releases 133 Israelis that they continue to hold this morning. We don't want to be at war. We never chose this war. But this war ultimately has to have a different outcome precisely for what the Jordanian was talking about, to create a better, safer, secure reality for all of the people in the region. Israelis deserve to live in security as well.
But look, final question. It is not happening so far. The hostages remain in Gaza and the talks have stalled once more, we understand, via Mossad this morning. You need to concede some ground to bring this to an end, don't you?
So you're suggesting we raise a white flag and surrender to Hamas and hope they don't do it again?
No, there has to be a diplomatic, agreed solution. You have to take a step towards peace, don't you?
Peace with Hamas is not an option. These aren't people that want peace. Hamas, as the governing authority of the Gaza Strip, were given ample opportunities to create a peace with Israel. Israel left the Gaza Strip. Israel allowed and permitted Hamas to choose their own path. Unfortunately, the path that they chose was a path of death and destruction, abduction, rape, and killing. This is exactly what they used the 17 years that they've been in power. They used those years to build the terrorist army that came into Israel. They didn't use the ample international support and projects to build above ground. They built this diabolical, the most extensive, expansive construction project ever to exist in the Gaza Strip, is all beneath ground to serve their terrorist endeavors. So I would say with Hamas, there can be no peace. We all have to agree that Hamas have to go. We have to agree that Hamas must go either by force or through, as I said, they can unconditionally surrender, and it will all be over today. But we both know that they aren't going to do that. They aren't going to cede that power, and therefore we need to take it from them. It is a challenge, and we do need international support to permit that. But every decent person around the world needs to acknowledge the fact that there can be no peace with Hamas. Did you see what they did to us? Did you see what they continue to say that they will repeat on doing to us? That is why the only outcome for a peace in this region can be without Hamas. We are on the path to get rid of Hamas. It may take time because they've been planning for this for 17 years. And so there is no quick fix. There is no easy prescription. And indeed, we need to do it in a way which allows and permits the change of the regime in Gaza. And ideally, I'd say the people of Gaza need to choose their own destiny, but it needs to be a destiny without terrorism against Israel.